Tonight, Swamp Thing loses his powers to his closest friend, and wouldn't you believe it, he might not be the most stand-up guy. Harley Quinn has an April Fool's Day special that is definitely about April Fools and not about cashing in on the new Suicide Squad movie. And Bloodlines gives an issue 1 that will leave you asking questions like, what? What just happened? All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 240 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I really don't have much to say this week. It's a interesting week in that we are in what I would consider the true end game of this show. We are finally wrapping up pretty much everything here and have only, well, depending on how you count, 10 or 11 episodes left. I'm going to say 10 because it makes it sound better. One thing I want to get out right at the get-go, and this is going to be so incredibly awkward to say. I am recording this on Easter Sunday. It has been a very busy day for me and my wife. In doing so, my wife fell asleep on the couch in my office, and I feel bad waking her up. But you may notice in some of the comics I review, you may hear her snoring in the background. She is. I'm going to be real quiet for a second. See if you can hear. Nope, of course she went quiet at the exact moment. But regardless, if you hear that in the background at any moment, apologies. Just know I do it out of love. Anyway, this week, just to really drive home how important of we're building up to the finality here, is we have finally gotten to issues 51 on a bunch of titles, which is crazy. But in alphabetical order, we have Batgirl, Batman Beyond, Bloodlines, a brand new miniseries that was not collected, Detective Comics, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Justice League Darkseid War Special, Midnighter, New Suicide Squad, Superman, and Swamp Thing. Now, out of all of those, you have Bloodlines, a miniseries just beginning now. You have the Darkseid War Special, which seems pretty damn important in its own right. And you also have Batgirl number 50, which essentially acts as the ending for the Batgirl run. Yes, there are 2 more issues, but this is the big wrap up to anything. None of those are the most important thing to come out this week. Not a single one of them. If you listen to anything out of this episode, it should be Superman. Tune in for Superman. It is important that you do so because we are starting something big there. And if you don't know what it is, don't spoil yourself. So just know that that's all happening. That's all good to go. Beyond that, yeah, don't really have anything else to say. So let's jump right on into... I'll probably still do Justice League first. Justice League The Darkseid War Special number 1, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis, Joe Prado, Oscar Jimenez, and Paul Pelletier. So, this is just the next issue. This maybe is a bit more disconnected to what was happening, but it is something that needs to be covered. Set after issue 48 at the bare minimum. So, we open with Jessica Cruz, whose body is currently being controlled by Volthoom inside the Power Ring, and it's just going nuts, just continuing the fight or whatever. However, Jessica, her soul, her mind is inside of the Power Ring. And we see that she's looking around and there's this voice that's saying hey, Volthoom's possessed your body, but your real body's out there and I can help you get to it if you just listen to me and we can get you out of here and we can save the rest of the Justice League, okay? I think I can get us out if you can get to me. And we see that Jessica hears the voice, follows it, and comes into this clearing where it seems to be the central power battery for Power Ring, but also the souls of everyone else that Power Ring has ever dominated, that Volthoom has ever taken control of. And Jessica's like, okay, well, that's horrifying, but who are you? And before the voice can respond, we see the Earth 3 version of Hal Jordan, the previous Power Ring, comes up and is like, Jessica, you can't leave. No, first off, it's impossible to leave. You're going to be screwed no matter what. But if you somehow do manage to escape and Volthoom comes back in here, he will do unspeakable things to us. And I cannot let that happen. We can't let you leave. And the voice disembodies just you've got a choice to make, Jessica. You can run away in fear or you can run away in trying to find me and doing this. And Jessica's like, all right. And she buckles down. She runs towards the boys. We then cut over to what is effectively the rest of the story, the backstory of Grail. And we see Marina Black is there. She walks into a cave where Grail is doing some meditating, and she gives a bit of backstory on herself, like, I am the greatest Amazonian assassin. I set out to destroy Darkseid, and anti-life is the most dangerous power in the universe. And I'm looking at my daughter here, who's literally doing some sort of weird ritual in order to try to unlock the true potential of anti-life. She's the daughter of Darkseid. I love her deeply, but like, damn, this does not look good. Then we cut to Grail, who's doing the monologuing, and she's like, I am doing the work of the old gods. Darkseid is this horrible thing, truly miserable, whatever. But like, the Amazonians also did bad things to us, to me and my mother, and I will become the greatest Amazon of all and do what none of them could. And then we go back to her backstory, which was already pre-established earlier on. It was a dark and stormy night when Diana gave birth to Zeus's daughter, not Diana, Hippolyta gave birth to Zeus's daughter, Diana, and on the opposite side of the island, Marina Black gave birth to Darkseid's daughter, Grail. And she did it with the plan of, you know, taking out the Darkseid or whatever, and the Oracle said that their lives would be forever entwined. However, when Marina was trying to make her way off of the island, she stopped and she came across Hippolyta's birthing site, and what she apparently saw something she wasn't supposed to, and Grail starts crying. The guards for Hippolyta hear it, and they're like, oh, Marina saw, she must be taken out, she cannot ever be let to know this. So Marina hops in a boat, starts making her way across the seas, begs Zeus to protect them, get them across the seas, and she does. She gets across to man's world. However, she comes across at the time of like roaming gladiators or whatever. So as she approaches, saying like, me and my daughter just want to pass through, they start trying to do some unsavory things, and Marina, being an assassin, just starts murdering them. After a few of them go down, the remaining ones are like, okay, mercy, like, we're good, we don't want to fight you anymore. And she lets them go. However, Grail opens her eyes and is like, nah, and Omega beams all of them to death. And she apparently giggled as it was happening. And that's when Marina's like, okay, we're going to have to work extra hard to control these murdery impulses that you have as a result of your father. And we see she gets Amazon training, all that stuff, but she does occasionally fall into these darker impulses where she just murders a bunch of people. And Marina never like shames her for it, anything like that. She just tries to get her to control her impulses better. One night, she wakes up in the middle of the night after seeing a vision of Darkseid claiming her as his own. And she goes into her mother's room and says, Mother. And then she tries to Omega beam her mother. And her mom uses her gauntlets to deflect the beams, and Grail snaps out of it. But that's the point that Marina's like, okay, look, you're not evil, but like, maybe I should have some protection of my own here as well. So we see there was a griffin that's been following Marina around this whole time. Turns out that it owed her a life debt of eternal servitude, and so she brought it back as essentially a bodyguard to protect from everyone. So we then see decades, centuries pass. She continues her training. Marina occasionally goes out into man's world and like tries to help. So like during World War I, World War II, she hops in, and she even occasionally makes some friends that like she tries to recruit to help with her mission. And then Grail consistently loses control, and they always end up dead. But you know, they're immortal, so they'll live forever. Eventually, they continue on their plan. Grail comes across one of the old witches who takes her eye of fate, and she sees the power to destroy Darkseid is the Anti-Monitor. So she goes across the multiverse, eventually comes across and convinces him, hey, you kill Darkseid, you can free yourself from your own anti-life pain. And he's like, cool, I'll do it. And then we cut back to modern day where she's meditating with this eyeball still. And Marina comes up like, hey, Grail, our plan was to save humanity from evil by killing Darkseid. You just replaced Darkseid with another evil that is the Anti-Monitor. I thought you said he'd be chill and he'd just piss off because he just wanted Darkseid dead. And Grail's like, all right, Ma, look, would you really have let me do it if you had known that the Anti-Monitor was also a genocidal maniac? Like, I don't think you would, but it's okay. I've been communing with the anti-life here. I've the rituals underway. I have a way not only to destroy Mobius, the Anti-Monitor, but also exact revenge on the Amazons and Darkseid, all in one swoop. And all I need is Mr. Steve Trevor here. And Steve Trevor's tied to a wall, and he's like, what do you want with me? And Marina tries to talk her out of it, like, hey, revenge isn't the best way to do things. It's like, nah, screw it. This is going to be great. So we see she steps up, draws some blood from Trevor, has the anti-life imbued within her or whatever, and says, like, oh, you were the first man to touch soil of Themyscira. Therefore, the Oracle says that you will either save the world or destroy it. And she plants a big nasty kiss on Steve, as Marina's like, wait, hold on, no, you don't know the full story here. So, just to skip ahead one page, we see the kiss breaks. Marina's freaking out because there's a huge blast of energy coming from Steve. And as Steve is still enchained to Grail, we see he's looking significantly more Darkseid, giving off some anti-life energy. And he's like, what have you done to me? She's like, oh, you'll see. Anyway, we cut back into the ring. Powering anti-Hal Jordan's managed to catch up with Jessica and just being like, no, hey, why do you want to leave? It's dangerous out there. Everything sucks. Everyone's fighting. You can stay safe in here, just hiding away. Let them die. You can be safe. And Jessica's like, no, like I already let my friends die once by not doing anything. I didn't even help them. And anti-Hal's like, yeah, you would have died with them. It's okay. Be a coward. And she's like, no, not again. So she ends up climbing up this like central pillar up to the central power battery. The voice is telling her, like, go ahead, they're right behind you. You can make it though. And he's like, okay, yes, I get that. But like, why is the central power battery telling me how to escape from the ring? And that's when the voice is like, oh, it's not the battery. I'm just hanging out here. It's me, Jessica. It's Cyborg. Because for anyone who doesn't remember, Grid took over Cyborg's body. And I guess the other half of Cyborg is just now inside the power ring, because I guess it's technology. It's not a bad special. I want to be clear on that. I think doing the Grail backstory makes for a perfect special, like a bridging issue where we just get a bunch of backstory and like, okay, cool, that's fine. My issue with it is the Green Lantern stuff, because that feels so unnecessary, and I have nothing to back this up, but my thought is that originally Darkseid War was going to go right up to issue 52, which was going to release in about 2 months' time after this issue came out. However, schedule slip happened. It was obvious that issue 52 was not going to come out at the same time as everything else, but what happens at the end of Darkseid War sets up the rest of Rebirth, so it needed to end there. So I think that the two issues that were originally going to be probably issues 49 and 50 were condensed into this special, and then issue what would have been 51 is now 49, 52 is now 50. I have nothing to back that up, but it feels very right. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a fine enough special. It feels like it should have just been 2 issues of the series rather than something different on its own. I'll say it is the art's great. I really don't have a problem with any of that. I'll give it the 8. I think it's up to that level. It's good. It's borderline great. But it does definitely feel like this isn't something you can skip. This is something that is the next part of the story. Superman number 51, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Mikel Janin. So last issue was the end of all the Savage Dawn stuff and all that whatevers. This issue, on the cover at least, purports that it is trying to set up a new thing called the Super League. All of that is a lie. Page 1, Superman says he is dying. And it's just his face shot. He looks very deeply depressed about that. And that's the arc we're in. Final days of Superman. So we continue with him running tests. He's in the Fortress of Solitude. Crypto's nearby, and he's like, I've run like a billion tests, and every single one of them says I'm dying. And it's not just what happened in Savage Dawn, because they did mention in that, hey, what you're doing is going to kill you eventually. But he says not only was it that, but it was also the Geoff Johns Darkseid War stuff going on, where he got a apocalyptic fire pit solar radiation, but it also was Brian Hitch's JLA book where he had to fight Rao, and that took a lot out of him. So all 3 of those things combined, he's dying. And he's pissed off, not because he's dying, but because he's not going to be able to be there for people. The world needs a Superman, and he's leaving it defenseless. And so he whaps around his computers a little bit. Crypto gets a bit concerned, and he's like, I'm sorry, buddy. I shouldn't be focusing on the past and like the future and all that. I just need to focus on what I need to do next to fill this spot, to like make sure the world is safe. And he looks up at the statues, not only of his Kryptonian parents holding up Krypton, but also Mom, Pa Kent holding up the Earth. And he's like, I'm glad I got to finish these. That's a good statue to have. So we get a cutaway that I assume we'll be cutting back to regularly of Dr. Omen, a new character who is in China. She's just throwing out some techno babble, talking to some computer, and it seems like she's focusing specifically on the fact that the merging of the Stormwatch carrier, the Justice League Watchtower, and the Fortress of Solitude may have left some openings in the security of the Fortress of Solitude. So she's pushing in some Trojan horse viruses, trying to get in, and this time was a success. She did it. Over in the Fortress, they get an alert. Hey, virus, it's came in. We caught it. It's doing a thing. Superman's like, who launched it? And it's like, we don't know. We don't know what they were after. But we stopped it. It seems to be all good. And it's like, okay, well, search for who did it anyway and rebuild the firewall. But I got to get going. So we see that he goes out. He's doing all the Superman stuff. He's catching falling people, saving people from fires. The airplane that's falling out of the sky, he's taking care of that. And it's a job for Superman. But we see he makes his way over to Smallville, and he meets up with Lana, who's doing some yard work in the backyard. And as he lands, he gets changed back into his Clark Kent costume, and they hop on an old swing set in Lana's backyard, being like, "Oh, hey, remember when we were young? We used to like push each other on this thing. We'd see how much height we could get." And Lana's like, "Oh yeah, one time you pushed me, and your powers kicked in, and I went the whole way around." And, it was a little flashback to that memory or whatnot. And Lana's like, yeah, come on, do it again. Push me around. I want to do it. And so they go the whole way around. Lana flies off the swing. Clark catches her. And he's like, hey, how about we go down to the cemetery and visit my parents? How about that? And she's like, why do you want to do that? You only want to do that if something's wrong. What's wrong? And he's like, we need to talk. Skip to the cemetery, skip the whole talk. Lana is just bawling in tears, and he's like, I had to tell you first. You're my oldest friend. I knew something was wrong after the whole Savage Dawn thing, and no one can really do anything. Like, this is how it is. But I came to you because I want you to promise me something, Lana. And he's like, of course, anything, whatever it is. And he's like, this might be really difficult for you to manage, but like when I die, I want you to make sure I'm buried next to Mom, Pa Kent, okay? And she's like, I don't want to think about that. And he's like, I know, but it needs doing, and I would appreciate if you did it. So we cut back over to Dr. Roman. She crawls out of whatever weird tunnel thing she was in and seals the room, and then walks over to one of those big like cloning vat looking things, and there's a body inside, and says like, oh, our time to shine has finally come. Our dreams are all underway. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned, China, she's Chinese. All this is taking place in the Chinese language. Then we cut to Minnesota in some random trucker stop diner thing, and a sheriff stops a man as he goes to get back in his truck saying, hey, we ran your plates. Are you this guy? And he's like, yeah, why? And it's like, because you are out on parole, like, and you violated your parole. You haven't checked in. So he throws his coffee at the cop, peels out, and he's like, heck, this is bad news for me. I got to deal with this. But then as he's driving away, all of a sudden, blinding comet or something comes down out of the sky. Some energy bolt hits him. Front of his truck explodes. He careens off the edge. Another kindly couple sees him go off, says, oh my God, let's see if we can go help. Sees that he's okay. He's crawling out. And he's like, sir, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, of course I'm all right. And as he stands up, he's giving off a massive amount of energy. He's got the Superman crest on his stomach or chest and says, I'm Superman. So we cut over to Metropolis. Lois is enjoying dinner alone, and Superman shows up, waves to the balcony, says, come on out. And she's like, oh, hey, you just decided to drop by? He's like, nope, came to see you specifically. And she's like, I'm glad you did. You're looking a little tired. Is everything all right? And he's like, it's been a hard couple months. There's been a lot going on. She's like, right, totally, because of the whole I leaked your identity thing for sure. I miss talking to my best friend. And that's, of course, you. So I am I'm sorry about all that. And he's like, yeah, I miss talking to you too. You want to maybe take a spin? And she's like, oh, where? And he just points up, and she's like, oh yeah, of course I want to fly. And as they're flying, Lois is like, so what's the occasion? Why'd you swing by? And he's like, Lois, I want you to tell the world about the life of Clark Kent and Superman. And that's where the issue leaves off. I'm pretty sure next issue is Batman Superman. I could be wrong about that, but no, it's touching. I think the Lana stuff is, interesting. We're getting into just those deep little things of like, okay, like All-Star Superman was obviously one where Superman's last days, but it was felt with this much more grandiose sort of like the big things and like the things that like the all-timer Superman was going to do. This feels much more narrow. This feels, okay, New 52 Superman specifically. What is he going to do? And I'm intrigued. Mikel Jan's not going to be art on all of them, but like, I like the art style here. I would love to have that across the board. But it's I don't know. It's one of those things that because I've been doing the whole New 52, it hits in a certain direction because it's a character I've been very familiar with here. I'll say this one is art style alone. I'm going to push it up to the 8. I'm definitely intrigued by the Dr. Omen stuff. I don't know the exacts on that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this arc. Hopefully it's handled with the same sort of grace and dignity that I know Peter Tomasi can handle because of the Batman and Robin stuff earlier on. I felt like he did a very good job with that. I think he can handle this here. Bloodlines #1, written by J.T. Krul, art by V. Kenneth Marion. So, elephant out of the room first. I do have this issue in single issue format. It was not collected in trade at any point, but I recently reorganized my collection and I don't know where I put this issue. I pulled it out to record and I don't know where it went, so I will be reviewing this on iPad. Does not matter to you at all. You probably weren't even looking at the screen. Anyway, we have Bloodlines, a series I'm completely unfamiliar with. I know Bloodlines was a thing back in the 90s as like maybe like a late 80s as like this big like, yeah, blood. We got to have an event with blood in it. I don't know what any of that was about. This seems to be independent, but we open up with a meteor crashing down outside of this small sleepy mountain town. A deer walks over to the crater and then immediately starts transforming into this horrific Cronenbergian beast. We then cut over to a teenage boy who's in bed saying how he used to be a morning person. 5:30 his alarm goes off, and as he wakes up he's saying like, I used to be a morning person. I used to jump out of bed, but not anymore because I can't jump. And we see that he does have some leg braces in his room, implying that this is a recent thing that's happened. So he goes out for breakfast. We see his mom is super busy in the morning, barely lets him get a word in edgewise, and that says like, all right, I'll be home late tonight. Goodbye. Have a good day. I love you. And finally he just responds with like, oh yeah, I love you too. Kid's name is Eddie, by the way. So we see Eddie is walking to school, and up comes one of his friends named Graham. And Graham seems to be one of the cool kids. He comes up, he's like joking around like, hey, get in the van, I got candy. And he's like saying, hey, Eddie, I always come to pick you up before school. Why is it that you leave like so early before I get there? Like, I'm always coming. He's like, because I don't like relying on people. What happens if you oversleep or you're sick or something and I don't find out about it? Then I'm straight out of luck. I need to be able to start walking on my own. I can still make it on my own. And Graham's like, I know you can, absolutely, but I got your back. So they get to school, like 10 minutes to spare, and Eddie has to go to his locker still, which is going to eat up so much time or whatever. We see Graham is talking to some of the other cool kids. They're saying like, oh yeah, do you see that Laura or whatever, Trish and Ashley, they posted some pictures from the changing room of trying on prom dresses. And it's like, oh man, sweet. So Graham says he's going to be running a little late that night. He probably won't be able to drive Eddie back, but whatever. He's just like, yeah, no worries, I'll manage. So we see you go into a science class. We get introduced to a kid named Albert. He's apparently just a super smart kid. The teacher just sits off doing fantasy football on the side. And Albert's giving some sort of lecture or talk or paper on DNA. And he's talking about how there are mutations in DNA and all this stuff. And he's like, Eddie's like, I hate this. It sounds like he's talking directly to me and the mutations that have caused my disability here. As he's sitting there, I guess his lab partner, or at least the person he shares the table with, is looking at Eddie. Eddie feels very self-conscious about it, and he like something on his arm. There's like some smudge or something. He rolls up his sleeve and like hides away from this girl there. We then meet Dana, who blogs a lot. Next page. No, her whole thing is that she apparently is bored during English class and she just wants some action and adventure in her books or whatever. So that's a whole thing. We then see at a gas station, there is a mom and her daughter. I think the daughter's name is Faith. She wants to get to the mall. Her mom has to fill up on gas. And there's this guy inside who is eyeing up the mom. Nothing comes of that. We then go to Stu's garage, where we see Stu is walking back to the garage area. He's like, hey, Blake's on the phone. He said he tried your cell. I think he's wondering when his Mustang's going to be done. You want me to tell him that he's working on it? And we see the hands that were working on it throw down the tools. And we're introduced to Haley, this punk-looking girl who says, well, tell him I was working on it until he started bugging me. We then cut over to Blake, who's on the other side of the phone. And Blake is there with his guy, Ricky. And I guess, they're not the cool kids, but like the I don't know, they're dicks. I don't know what you want to call them. So he's like, yeah, well, Haley's giving you the freeze probably because you slept with her while she was still working on your car. And he's like, yeah, well, I would have known otherwise. Oh, wait, well, hold on. One of them was a cop. Never mind. I just now noticed that. They walk up with badges, and apparently they're going up to a well-known crack den, and they're just going to start busting some heads open. So they're cool people. So then we go back with Eddie. We see that there is this place where all the cool kids gather, at night just to hang out. It's called Sullivan Field, and their town is called Pine Ridge. And he gets invited only because he's friends with Graham, but like nobody really pays him any attention because he comes off as the crippled kid. So he just picks a tree off to the side and nurses a beer. And he's like, yeah, most kids have to worry about, getting caught drunk driving. I literally can't walk if I get too drunk. How am I supposed to get home? So there's a couple that's making out over in some of the bushes, and one of them's like, oh, I thought I heard something in there. It's just like, oh, yeah, it's the woods. There's creatures everywhere, babes. There's possums and stuff. And she's like, possums? I hate them. They're giant rats or whatever. He's like, oh, whatever. Get back here, Jenny. And then the giant Cronenbergian moose deer thing pops out, bites off this guy's arm. Everyone starts screaming. Everyone's running. Eddie tries to get up on his feet to go away, but his leg braces, like he doesn't have them fully on, so he falls to the ground. Graham comes over to try to help him, but the deer gets to Graham first, and as Eddie's watching his only friend get like devoured in front of him, all of a sudden some energy starts. He starts turning blue and growing in size until he rips through his clothes and he fully like hulks out, and he's like, what the hell is going on? But when he sees the deer still feeding on Graham, he runs over, punches the deer in the neck, manages to, the deer like latches into his arm, and he just grabs hold of its snout and rips its upper jaw off. And the deer is dead. Eddie then runs over to Graham, still in his big form, and Graham's looking up, like bleeding out. He's like, oh, hey, man. We could have used you for the big game on Friday. And Eddie's like, dude, stop talking. I will get you some help. You'll be okay. And he's just like, yeah, I guess I don't need to take care of you anymore. And then Graham ends up dying in Eddie's arms. And Eddie shrinks back down and screams out, no. To be continued. I mean, it's good. It's fine. Like, I remember J.T. Krul, he wrote a bunch of stuff at the beginning of the New 52, and it had the same sort of thing where I felt like I was confused for the first, like, issue or two until I finally got my bearings. Like, it felt like it took a while to really get into it. I'm not saying that's a good thing, because, like, I do think that this issue does a good job of giving me the bare basics, of telling me, like, okay, here's Eddie, the kid that we spend the most time with. Clearly he's like the protagonist, and obviously something weird happened with like this town. Like this deer probably was around here, the crater's probably around here, but it's not doing a good job of telling me like why specifically Eddie was the one who changed here, and also what all of these other secondary characters are, what their role is going to be in all this. The only reason I'm worried about it is because it's a 6-issue miniseries. We're not going to have a lot of time to delve into all of this stuff, but if we can pace this out properly, if we can specifically say, okay, here we go, character A, B, C, and how they get their powers and all that, then I'm not opposed to it. I'm just worried is all, because I've seen it go poorly. I guess collectively this issue is a interesting start. It's got me a little intrigued. It does feel still a little bit 90s, but obviously that's what we're pulling from. I'll say this is a flat 7 with a lot of room for improvement. Not saying it's bad, but I'm saying it has potential. So here's hoping that we can deliver on something to do with that. Harley Quinn and the Suicide Squad April Fool's Day Special #1, written by Rob Williams, art by Jim Lee and Sean Galloway. So I didn't actually know if I was going to cover this on this show, because while it does, it fits all the criteria for everything else, it is more heavily related to the Rebirth Suicide Squad run, because Rob Williams is the one who will be writing that. But also it is kind of just a special holiday, oh, here you go, and also the Suicide Squad movie's coming out. Boy, we would sure love to be able to put something that says Harley Quinn and the Suicide Squad on the cover. But I'll cover it anyway, because why not? So we open up with Harley, no particular point in time. If anything, maybe like when she's not on the Suicide Squad in general, it's hard to say. But she's just kind of emo, saying like, supervillains have it tough, man. Like, we constantly get our asses handed to us by superheroes. And we see some clips of like Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman beating up their villains. And she's just, meanwhile, just zoning out on the couch, just eating some popcorn, doing whatever. Meanwhile, some mysteriously shadowy figure shows up outside, rings the doorbell, and drops off some sort of file folder there, and then walks off. And when Harley goes to answer the door, she sees the files and a card attached to it that says Evil Anonymous Supervillain Therapy. And when she opens it up, she sees this whole portfolio inside saying like, oh, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous, but for evil people. And they need someone who understands them, but is also very smart about psychiatric things. And then Harley's like, oh, that's me. I'm a supervillain and also trained in psychiatry. That's perfect for me. I can go in there and I can help them. It'll be my altruism for life. And I need to give it a test run, though. Let me try it out first to see if it fits. So she goes out into Gotham, and she comes across, soaring through the skies, Man-Bat. And so she leaps off of a building, grabs hold of him, and starts trying to psychoanalyze him. Meanwhile, Man-Bat's just responding with scree and ah. So as she's flying through, she's like, oh yeah, tell me about your mother, all that sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, because she is on the back of Man-Bat, Man-Bat starts crashing down into the city below, and she's trying to get him to like pull up, not crash into people, but she's being very distracting, and she's not helping anything at all. So eventually she gets out the business card for Evil Anonymous, and she's like, hey, would you like to join the Supervillain Therapy group? It's super great. But she's distracting Man-Bat long enough that he crashes headfirst into a fire truck, which knocks his ass out. He goes flying through the city. And we see that he's about to crash land just on top of a bunch of cops who have gathered. So Harley has to use Man-Bat's body essentially as a bullet shield, surfing on the back of him. And then she manages to coast down an alleyway nearby. When she looks back at Man-Bat, she finds that he is turned back into Kirk Langstrom. And she's like, oh, I did it. I cured him. This is my calling. This is exactly what I need to do. So she then goes running from the cops who are chasing her down, and something happens. I don't know what, but we transition from the Jim Lee art into the Sean Galloway art, which is a lot more cartoony. And Harley, as she's running, she thinks that she got hit on the head, and she starts to pass out, but before she does, she sees a shadowy figure stepping out of a car to grab her. She wakes up sometime later, she's in her full psychiatric uniform, and she's inside of a therapist's office. And there's a knock at the door. She's like, wait, hold on, how'd I get here? What's going on? Who's at the door? I need my mallet. At the door is Killer Moth, who says, hey, I'm here for the Evil Anonymous thing, Supervillain Therapy. And Harley's like, oh yeah, that's me. Ignore the mallet. Come on down, lay down. What's up? And he's like, oh, hi, I'm Killer Moth, all that. And he's like, yes, you can call me Dr. Quinn. What seems to be the problem? He's like, I'm obsessed with moths. And we see that he just gives a whole thing. And Harley is over the moon. She's like, yes, this is my calling. I've never been so happy. This is perfect. This is exactly what I needed to do. And she fantasizes about Obama giving her a medal and recognizing her for being so incredible. So we see that she continues on doing her thing. She talks to Enchantress. She talks to Ratcatcher, Toyman. She even meets with someone who has a starro on their face. They don't talk much. But the last person to come in is Poison Ivy. And she's like, Ivy, what, you need therapy? And she's like, nah, I just came out to get some cocktails with you. Let's go. So they end up robbing a bank to get some money for cocktails. And then as they go out, Ivy's like, so what's the end game with all this? Like, is this just like hijinksing? Like, what is all this? And she's like, no, I think this is my actual calling. This is something that like is bringing me a lot of joy and like what I might have always been meant to do. And Ivy's like, I don't buy it. You're Harley Quinn. You always got to have a little bit of doing bad and getting those thrills in somewhere. You're not going to just be a normal psychiatrist. Plus, the file was dropped off by somebody in a shadowy figure. Like, you're part of some evil plan, even if you don't know it yet. And we see Harley the next day. She's listening to Killer Moth, and it's just like, oh, yawn. Ivy was right. This is boring. I can't take another minute of this. And so she sits up and says, Killer Moth, do you know about the 12-step plan of Evil Anonymous? And she's like, no. And it's like, perfect. Let's go do one of the steps, because I'm making it up as I go. It turns out the step she made up is go try to recruit somebody into Evil Anonymous. And so Scarecrow is out causing chaos with his fear toxin. Killer Moth walks in saying, hey, buddy, I joined this group called Evil Anonymous, and I think it would do some good for you, because it really did some good for me. Meanwhile, Harley is hijacking some of the fear toxin in the background. And as Scarecrow realizes what is being asked of him, he just doses Killer Moth, and he's like, oh god, the moths, they're everywhere. So we see that one of the other things Harley's done, now she has some fear toxin, she calls together a group therapy session. Everyone's sitting on the couch. And then she pulls down like a lap bar as if it's a roller coaster, trapping all of them there, and she doses them with fear toxin. She's like, haha, now that you have told me all of your secrets and your weaknesses and where you keep your cash, I will become the queen pin of crime, Harley Quinn, ha 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 ha. And then all of a sudden there's a crashing noise. We go back to the Jim Lee art, and the Justice League has busted in. And it seems like this is to an extent actually happening, but it also seems like they're in the middle of a warehouse and not in a therapist's office. So Harley is super pissed off. They say like, oh, we found out about this villain team, Evil Anonymous. We're taking it out now. And Harley's like, no, this isn't fair. I was having character growth, and you guys came in and you're just stopping it. You're spoiling everything. But they managed to put a Green Lantern straitjacket on her, and she's just like so pissed off of saying like, oh, what chance do us ordinary people have against the likes of them, against these giants? And as Batman steps up to take her away to Arkham, she headbutts him and says, you know what? You people, you're the real bad guys. And she collapses to the ground. Cut to, I don't know when. Turns out that this is perhaps all just a Clockwork Orange-esque thing where Harley has her eyes strapped open with a bunch of screens that are showing superheroes, and the shadowy figure comes up behind. It's Amanda Waller. I'm not going to play that. It's Amanda Waller. It clearly is. And she's just like, yeah, those superheroes, you've been mumbling about Evil Anonymous and how you were going to do something good, and those superheroes ruined it all, didn't they? You really hate them, don't you? And she's like, yes, I do. And she's like, yeah, you were finally where you were meant to be, and then those superheroes came in, and they forced you back into the same old patterns you were always in. That's what those superheroes do to all of us. They force us into these same old patterns. How are we supposed to change when the likes of them are keeping the status quo like that? And he's like, yeah, no, I hate it. And it's like, so would you be interested in joining something that did something about those superheroes that really made that happen? And she's like, yes, I would. And then a giant vision of the Joker shows up and says, yeah, do it, Harley. It's going to be super fun. So he's just like, yeah, I knew we could count on you. And Harley's like, wait, hold on. Before I join, though, I need to know, Evil Anonymous, all that stuff, was any of that actually real? Did any of it happen? And then Amanda Waller unmasks herself, but is still hidden behind Harley. And she's like, does it really matter? And Harley just sighs and just goes, no, I guess not. I just wanted to help. And then we see Waller going back to a room where the Suicide Squad's hanging out in, and they're like, did you just make Harley even crazier? And she's like, no, I just need to know whether or not she was going to be on board, whether she was properly motivated for what's coming up next. And I think we've got her there. And Suicide Squad's like, all right, we don't really care. Just tell us where we got to go next and who we got to kill next. So, yeah, that's that. I'll be honest, this book feels more like a marketing tool than it does like a story that felt necessary. Perhaps Rob Williams is doing some setup for the Rebirth Suicide Squad one. I wouldn't know. I never really got into that. It more so feels like, hey, we've got a Suicide Squad movie coming out. Harley is far and away the number one thing that we want to push from that. So Harley Quinn and the Suicide Squad, right there, big bold letters for just $4.99. It's fine. It's an okay story. I like the art more than I like the story itself. I think the art, the cartoonishness of Sean Galloway is just really fitting this inherently. So I don't know. It's got its positives, but overall, I don't think I can really say above like a 7.5. And even that feels like it may be a bit generous. I'll give it to it. I'll say 7.5, but like it definitely, I don't feel bad about potentially skipping this book on this show. I feel like that might have been the right call, but hey, we did it, whatever. Batgirl number 50, written by Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, art by a bunch of people: Babs Tarr, Roger Robinson, John Timms, Eleonora, Carlini, and James Harvey, with Cameron Stewart also doing some art as well. So the whole Fugue arc leads up to this. Last issue we had going through Barbara's memories to try to get her back on her feet, and then discovering that Fugue had told her his entire plan and just repeatedly wiped it over and over again. So when Babs wakes up, she knows what it all is. Cut to 3 hours from now, just a little teaser. Fugue is about to shoot Batgirl and says, haha, it's over, you lost, and then the pulling of the trigger. But we cut back to now, where Fugue is apparently explaining his plan to every single villain that has ever been involved in the Burnside period here for Batgirl. And he's like, so that's the plan. I know her name and her weaknesses and everything else, and I am willing to sell that to the highest bidder. Go ahead, start bidding on it. And then Velvet Tiger stands up and is just like, I am the only person here with any sort of money. I don't know why we're wasting our time on a bidding process. I'll just name your price and I'll take it. And all the other villains are like, whoa, hold on. We all hate Batgirl. Why do you get to do it just because you have money? And Fugue's like, all right, well, fair enough. You all should have at least the opportunity to. My plans require some motivated workers. Would any of you like to join in on that? And Velvet Tiger's like, hold on. This is stupid. This is absolutely dumb now. You know who I am? And Fugue's like, but Velvet Tiger, you were so into the idea when we last talked about it. Don't you remember? And he does this little weird Fugue memory stuff. And Velvet Tiger's like, oh, yeah, no, cool, I'm cool. Let's go with the plan. So we cut over to Batgirl, and she's like, I know Fugue's plan. We got to get out there. We got to stop him. And Canary and Frankie are like, are you sure about that? Dad, you just went through a lot. You need to sit down. And she's like, he knows everything about me. He knows everything about the larger Bat family. Like, all of this has gone to hell, and he's trying to blame me for what he's going to do for the city. This is he is my problem. I'm going to take him out. And then Spoiler and Bluebird also show up and are like, we'll help. So we get a 2-page spread where it's basically both of them explaining what the plan is simultaneously to their respective peoples. And the idea of it is that he's going to manipulate all the people of Burnside by placing devices around the city. Turns out that they're going to use the pneumatic tubes that they discovered last issue in order to transport different people, different places. And so they know exactly the different places they're going to show up based off of what would make sense for his devices and also the pneumatic tubes. He's then going to turn on a device called the Dream State on the Burnside Bridge. He's going to use it to convince everyone that they should come to the bridge. And once he does so, he's going to blow it all up, killing thousands of people and blaming it on Barbara Gordon because he's going to use the Negahedron and her clean energy technology in order to power it and do it. And blah, blah, blah. That's all how it is. So they got to take out some pylons or whatever that are scattered around the city. We open up with Killer Moth. He's inside some sort of museum. He's cocooned up the security guards in some special goop, and Bluebird comes in, uses a magnetic magnetized weapon in order to pull the gun away from him, and then shoots him with his own goop. And it's like, all right, well, that was like super easy. Who else needs help? And we go over to Spoiler, who's fighting against the Jawbreakers, the women on motorcycles with katanas. She comes in, manages to swipe one of them off the motorcycle with her bow staff. It just gets up and it's like, all right, well, try doing that again. And they hop up on the same motorcycle together. The katanas are drawn, and then Bluebird shows up with a magnetized weapon again, just takes away their katanas, and it's like a 3-punch fight. Eventually, they talk back to Frankie, aka Operator, who is saying, hey, there's a power source up in the top of a building nearby. Go check that out. Turns out it's another one of the pylons, and guarding it is Corporal Punishment, who doesn't have any magnetized stuff. She's just severely roided up. So Corporal Punishment starts an all-out attack, gets the drop on Harper, and that's where a giant robot batsuit comes in. But it's not Jim Gordon's batsuit. It's another one that belongs to the GCPD that Frankie is just hijacked and is like, well, I hope they don't notice. Robot versus a person seems very unfair, so Robot ends up winning. We then cut over to the Burnside Bridge. We see Fugues activated his dream state protocol. He's changing the memory of everyone in Burnside. Now they all think that Barbara Gordon got on TV and said, hey, I'm Barbara Gordon. I've made some new form of clean energy, and I'm Barbara Gordon, and you should all come out to the Burnside Bridge to watch it being demonstrated. I'm Barbara Gordon. And so they all head out there to the bridge. They're all going to put on a big spectacle or whatever, or at least that's what they're expecting to see. Spoiler is in the crowd trying to stop people from going there, but there's no use. They can't make any impact on them. So Frankie's like, look, we just have to shut down all the pylons and hope that the memories will fade and that they will like realize they weren't supposed to be there to begin with. We then cut to Black Canary versus Velvet Tiger. It's literally Velvet Tiger throws a knife. Black Canary's about to scream at her, and then she goes, whoa, hold on, whoa. I just remembered something. I don't want to fight you. And we cut over back to the bridge where Batgirl's finally made it. I do want to point out that, like, in the art, everything up until this point has had it happening in the dead of night. For some reason, this artist has it happening in the middle of the day. It's distracting, but regardless, she sees Fugue up at the top of the bridge. She grapples up there and just kicks him in the face. And this is like, I remembered your whole plan. You've got nothing now. And he's like, I never told you the whole plan. Tee-hee-hee. And he pulls out a detonator, presses the button, and the bridge doesn't blow up, but some other building on the other side of Burnside does. And everyone freaks out. They're like, oh my God, what was that? What just exploded? In the chaos, Fugue manages to escape from Batgirl's clutches, but all of a sudden, down on the ground, this woman starts crying out, my son, my son. Turns out, this is the same lady from like 4 issues ago, when she first started getting memory problems, that her son got arrested and she blamed it on Barbara Gordon. And she's like, this is all that Barbara Gordon woman's fault. First, she had my son arrested, and now that he was back home again, she blew up the building he was in, because that just came from our neighborhood. She's dead because of Barbara Gordon. And everyone, news media is all there. They're all taking this at her word. Batgirl finally steps in and is just like, hey, this probably isn't the Gordons. The Gordons are stand-up people. I'm thinking it's a supervillain, but I'll get back to you on that. So Black Canary hops over the comms and says, hey, Velvet Tiger's memory, like false memory, faded away after a while, so she's willing to help us. And Velvet Tiger's like, he's at the bank. So the Batbot comes in, picks up Barbara, flies her clear across town. They never give a name to this guy. He's the guy who tried to take Barbara's identity, like Batgirl's identity, and make her all glamorous or whatever. He's got a sniper rifle. He just shoots the Batbot in the head, which causes it to start crashing to the ground. He's like, haha, Batgirl, you'll be a smatter on the pavement. But it turns out she just glides in and then kicks this guy in the face. Batbot explodes, causing a fire at the bank, but as she gets into the back room, she finds Fugue with piles of money. And she's like, are you kidding me? All of this was just so you could do another goddamn stupid robbery? And he's like, excuse me, this is a fantastic robbery, I'll have you know. But also, no, I was serious about the revenge stuff. And then he starts using his Fugue powers again, and he's like, I know all your secrets, Barbara. I'm going to take you down. I will destroy the very memory of you by making Barbara Gordon this horrible regret on this city, a disgrace. And Barbara's like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. The memory faded away from Velvet Tiger, which means it's not very permanent, but for some reason for me, these memories have been permanent, and it's because of my neural implant, right? That's what it is. And he's like, shut up. You're going to die now. And she's like, all right, that's all I need to hear. So she pulls out a batarang, cuts open the back of her neck, and starts stabbing at the implant. And she's like, ha, I broke it. And then she just falls to the ground because the implant was the thing that was keeping her not paralyzed. And Hugh's like, are you serious, man? This was your plan of paralyzing yourself? Like, that was it? And so she forces herself back up onto her feet, and she's like, nah, I still got some left in me. So they start to struggle, and then all of a sudden there's a bang. Barbara has been shot, Fugue pulls a gun, and she just goes down dead on the floor. Fugue pulls off his helmet, gets on the phone with somebody saying, hey, I did it, Batgirl is dead. And the voice on the other side says, you sure about that? Then all of a sudden Fugue wakes up. It was a fake memory. Somehow Barbara implanted it in him, and she has trapped him in the pneumatic tube. There is, all the money's on the outside, and he has no way to fight back now. And as he's in there, he's banging on the glass. He's like, I'll tell everyone about you. I know everything I need to know, like your secret identity, which is, well. And then Barbara's like, oh yeah, when I put that made up memory in there, I might have changed a few things as well. You don't remember any of the stuff regarding me. Bye. And just presses the button, sending the tube to the GCPD where he's to be expected. So Barbara collapses down. She's happy she did it. She saved the day. However, the building's still on fire, and she still can't walk. Not well, at least. So she calls over to Frankie, says, hey, I can't move. And Frankie sends in another Batbot to pick her up and get her out of there. 6 weeks pass. Frankie has repaired the neural implant, given it some defensive upgrades so that it can't be hacked as easily. And it turns out that with the Gordon Clean energy being drawn through the mud, but then ultimately given a... what's the word I'm looking for? It's turned back into a good thing. Like, it's saying like, oh, we found out that they didn't actually do this. It's actually the villain. They've managed to get a huge PR boost, and so the company's doing great. Frankie is like, hey, by the way, I want to show you one more thing. She takes Barbara down into the basement, and down there is a sealed door, which she says is only linked to Barbara's biometrics, and through that is the Batgirl outfit, all of her Batgirl stuff. And she's like, you said you always wanted to get out of the apartment. Here you go. And the final panel is Batgirl riding through the city, ready to take on whatever's next. So I feel like it's a good ending for the Fugue storyline, but I've said this throughout the whole Fugue arc, is that it feels like the same arc twice. We did the whole thing with the computer virus taking on the identity of Batgirl and like being its own thing, but now we do the same thing of Fugue, who's just trying to make Barbara Gordon's identity bad. Like, it's the same arc, just from opposite sides. And to an extent, there's something, I guess, a little poetic about that, but it also feels like I just did the same thing twice, you know? Like, it doesn't... Barbara can't trust her brain. Oh, no. Beyond that, I mean, the art's fine. There's a little bit of those weird art things I mentioned during the review. It's not like it's a bad issue. Something about it was just... It felt like for the entire Burnside arc, this was the finale. Sure, we have 2 more issues, but like, we brought together all the team members. We had all the previous villains. This is essentially the finale to the Burnside arc. And I just don't feel like I got a massive finale out of it. It felt very much like, okay, and that's it. Bye-bye. So I'll say 7. It's okay. It's fine. It's just not anything great, you know? I wish it could have been just a little bit bigger or had a bit more of a punch at the end, but it's okay. Green Lantern number 51, written by Robert Venditti, art by Rafa Sandoval. So last issue, issue 50, was a big fight against Parallax, and then it ended with Hal becoming a Green Lantern construct, and he seemed very unsure about that. So this issue picks up, he goes up to meet with his brother, he's like, I feel weird. Am I weird? And the brother's like, maybe? I mean, is that you, Hal, or are you a construct? And he's like, Hal, that doesn't ring a bell. And also, I don't know who you are. And also, I don't know who I am. What is this Hal you speak of? And he's like, well, okay, hold on. You've been crashing on my couch. It's me. I'm your brother Jim. Like, does any of that ring a bell? And then Jim just goes through the whole Hal Jordan backstory, like, our father was a test pilot. You also became a test pilot. Then you became a Green Lantern. And then he gets into the specifics of, recently you took on the guise of a criminal in order to get the Green Lantern Corps out of some hot water. But then they all disappeared. And now you're here checking on me. And then this Parallax dude showed up and you beat him and now you're green. Does any of that ring a bell? And Hal, I guess it does ring a bell. It turns him back into normal human form. He collapses. He's clearly out of energy. Jim gets him set up on the couch, and all the kids are like, that was awesome. We were see-through, Uncle Hal. And Hal's like, yeah, okay, what just happened there? And Jim's like, hell if I know, man. I don't know half the stuff you do. You were one of your, like, construct things. And Hal's like, okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what this is. This is very much a new development. I think I might have become pure willpower. And Jim's like, is that like a normal level of crazy with you, or is that like an extra level of crazy? He's like, that's a level of crazy where I need to go and find the Green Lantern Corps like right now, because they're the only ones who are going to be able to help me with this. And frankly, I probably should have been doing this a while back as well. So I'm heading off into space. Thank you all so much. Goodbye. And he's, he takes his more time with it. He hugs the kids and thanks his brother for everything that happened there, and then flies off saying like, hey, don't worry, I'll be fine. So meanwhile, out in space, if you happen to remember, the ship Darlene was told to like go piss off and do some other stuff. Turns out it's being attacked by space pirates, and Virgo and Trapper are still on the ship and they're trying to get away. We see that the leader of these pirates, at least I'm calling them pirates, Virgo calls them pirates, and they don't argue. He says, marshal rank to the gray agents. Get ready, we're hopping on board. And they have some level of like phasing technology or teleportation. They end up on board. They start taking shots at Virgo and Trapper. Trapper's like, hey, Prince Kid, stay down. I don't want you getting hurt because our vitals are linked together, if you remember that. And then Virgo just jumps in and starts doing kung fu on him. And he's like, haha, I knew that you had some royalty training of martial arts or whatever. So then Trapper tries to join in the fight as well. However, one of the gray agents is a giant frog man, and he just grabs Trapper and starts tossing him around. And Virgo tries to do like a hostage negotiation, like, I'll let go of mine if you let go of yours. And then some other gray agent comes in, punches Virgo in the face. They're both out of the fight. The gray agents look around, are like, okay, we've disabled the ship's AI, we've done a scan. Turns out they sent a distress signal like 2 minutes before we got here, so God only knows where that was being sent to, but we should get them back over to the ship and back to our outpost. Except for Marshal Rank, who's like, no, hold on, we've still got more to do. So they get them back to the outpost, and it turns out that they're going to go memory searching into their heads, and they're saying like, okay, we know the ship belonged to Hal Jordan. Tell us what we need to know about him. And they're like, what the hell is a Hal Jordan? I've never heard of a Hal Jordan, but has anybody, what? And they're like, guys, we're the good guys, so we hope you understand that. And then the frog one, who has a TV like welded into the back of his head, can apparently use his hands to like search through the memories of people. And he does it to Virgo, and he sees the goodbye that Hal gave Virgo, saying like, here's this thing on your wrist to let you have your vitals linked to Trapper, and also I'm going to Earth and I'm looking for my family, and yada yada yada. And we see that Marshal Ranks is like, okay, Earth, cool, we're going to Sector 2814, let's do it. However, there are some other pirates, gray agents, whatever, who are watching this happening. They're putting it into their records or whatever. And then all of a sudden they get attacked by some constructs. And then the ship that Virgo and Marshal Rank and all them are in starts getting torn limb from limb with giant green harpoons and arrows and spears. And then Hal shows up and he's like, hi, I think you were looking for me. You might be thinking, boy, that sure saved us some trouble, but I assure you the trouble has only just started. So yeah, that's issue 51. I mean, it's not a bad issue in its own right, but it definitely feels like it is, we did something cool in 50. We are bridging a little bit of a gap to get us back into space and back to where we can look for the Green Lantern Corps, and then we're going to deal with this all in issue 52. My only concern is that they're not going to deal with any of it in issue 52. Like, him turning into green willpower feels like such a huge thing, like such a big deal here. The only way I could see them getting away with just, oh, never mind, is him tossing away Krona's gauntlet, which, fine, fair. If he has another ring, so be it. He can do that. But, like, the whole finding the Green Lantern Corps aspect of it, I can't help but feel like, no, like, that's not going to happen. Like, there's a whole miniseries that needs to be wrapped up on the other side. I don't know if it's going to be wrapped up in the miniseries, and this is just going to make reference to it, or what's going to happen there. But it doesn't feel like... And then, again, all the gray agent stuff, that they've just got introduced. Whatever they got to do needs to be wrapped up in the next issue. That's insanity. So all of that stuff combined, I don't think we're going to have enough time. That being said, this issue is okay. It's fine. I have no problems with it. So I think I'll just give it a blanket 7. Just say, okay, cool, great. And then move on from there, because all my qualms are going to be what they do or don't do in issue 52. Detective Comics number 51, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Fernando Pasarin. So last issue was the end of the, I don't even know if that guy had a name, the weird history statue memorial buff villains arc. This issue picks up with something new, something different, where we get a man running down the streets of Gotham, pushing people out of the way. He's clearly trying to outrun something. And we see a dark, shadowy figure overlooking him as he ducks down an alleyway. We then go to Gordon, who's picking up some stuff from the nearby grocery store, and the clerk is saying, like, oh, thanks, Commish. And he's like, I told you, I'm not Commish, I'm just Jim. Like, you don't got to call me that anymore. As Gordon is returning home, we see that same person is making their way out into the light, and as Gordon opens his door, he's like, Sergeant Gordon, I've been looking for you. And Gordon recognizes the guy, calls him Behringer. And he's like, oh my God, come on up, we'll get you some coffee. He's like, no, I want to keep this outside. And he like hides off to the side down an alleyway. And he's like, Behringer, when did you get off duty? And he's like, I didn't. I went AWOL. I need your help. He's like, are you crazy? Like, do you know what they're going to do to you? He's like, someone owes me one. Anyway, this is bigger than that. Nobody believes me. What's going on? And he says that the thing that we buried in the desert didn't stay buried. And Gordon's like, what do you mean? Somebody found it? And he's like, no, it found us. And Gordon lists off a bunch of names. He's like, what about all these people? They were all involved in it. And he's like, all of them are dead. Colonel Stone is covering it all up as if it's some friendly fire incident or something. It's like, what about these other people? They also kind of do. And it's like, MIA, we don't know where they were at. Like, it's a whole thing. The people were sent to investigate, and they're just gone now. And then a voice from behind says, and you'll soon be to join them. And this guy jumps out. He's got a knife, and he attacks Behringer, saying for Amun Set, and then he starts going after Gordon, and the guy's saying like, oh, your blood will quench the thirst of Amun Set, I will strip the flesh from your body. And Gordon just elbows him in the face, attacks his spine. He's down on the ground. He turns his attention back to Behringer, but it turns out that the knife that the guy had slit Behringer's throat, and he's not long for this world. Gordon tries to get an EMT, but he's like, no, look, you have to help them. You're the only one who believes me. Please, for all of us, save them. And he ends up dying. The guy on the ground is like, haha, his soul will burn for his atrocities, but mine is set free. And then he takes what seems to be a cyanide capsule as the cops finally end up arriving. We see Gordon's back in his place. He's like, when I last saw Behringer, he was promoted to Lance Corporal. Now he's a sergeant major. I need to call around a little bit, see what's going on here. Or sorry, no, that actually doesn't happen yet. He opens up his old box that he has, gets out his military dog tags, and he's like, all right, who am I kidding? I got to take care of this. So he goes to the morgue where the guy who was attacking them is, and the person doing the autopsy is like, it wasn't a cyanide pill, it was like a real bunch, like it was like arsenic and opium and hemlock, like it's some old school stuff. And also he's got these strips of flesh carved out of his back. It looks to be very ritualistic. I don't know what this is. We're gonna do some tests on it, see what's up, but like, any idea? And he's like, nah, I don't know, there's nothing. So he ends up walking out. No information on the guy, but that's where he opens up a box, breaks out a bunch of the old memories, and he's like, yep, this is exactly what it was like, what we found out in the desert. It's scaring the crap out of me that this is here, but I need to verify Behringer's story. So he starts calling around to a bunch of the old military families, and he doesn't let on that anything's happened, but he's like, oh, no, I didn't know that they passed. I'm so sorry to hear that. And he calls one of the people who was MIA and is just like, oh, I'll let you know if I find out anything. I promise, yeah. Until finally he's convinced it's like, yep, this is what happens, and looks like I'm going to need to pack a suit. And we see he's got the bat suit all packed up. We then see he heads to Afghanistan, military base. He's welcomed in, no real problems there. And he meets up with one of his old buddies to be able to, find out what's going on there. When he gets back into the group, everyone else is talking. Just like 5 people left, and it's just like, yeah, everyone else was either killed in action or refused to talk. Like, this is it. There's also some new kid there. His name is Frank Fucci. I don't know if that's going to be a thing, but he's just hanging around as well. And they give the story of saying, yeah, look, we were out on patrol. We were just doing normal stuff. About 6 months ago, we were close to where it all happened. And then all of a sudden we were jumped by this group, and they were all screaming retribution for Amonset. And we think they're targeting us specifically. It's this whole thing here. And Gordon's like, okay, yeah, totally. I'm like, okay, but like, Gordon, what exactly are you hoping to do here? Like, you're just another army guy. What are you supposed to do? And he's like, Marine Corps, we'll do what we can. So we see he puts on the bat suit. He breaks into the CO's files. He starts checking out stuff in terms of these cover-ups, these friendly fire, things like that. And he's like, yep, nope, this guy, either it goes higher than him or someone's preventing him from talking. So we see he goes around base. He tries asking about the guys who went missing, the guys who were killed. He's getting a bunch of conflicting stories. Obviously, nobody's been told the full thing until finally he's like, all right. He meets up with one of the original guys from the crew, and he's like, what did we end up finding out? And he's like, look, Stone, the guy who's covering it all up, is going to be off base for a while tomorrow. He does this every once in a while. When he did it first, our guys started turning up dead soon afterwards. So this is going to be our best shot. So we see that Gordon stakes this guy into town, and he meets up with someone who is from this Amonset group, and the Amonset guy's chewing him out, saying like, oh, you need to bring the interlopers. They all need to be punished for what's happened, blah, blah, blah. And Stone's just like, you're not listening to me. You're doing things too quickly. Like, you should have killed Gordon back in Gotham, because that could have been brushed off. But now he's here in Afghanistan, and you're going to have to wait, because it would be too suspicious if he was murdered here. And the Amonset guy's like, all of them will be murdered. The sands will consume all of you, blah, blah, blah. And then Gordon comes up like, hey, guys, I thought I heard my name mentioned. Amonset guy immediately tries to kill him, stabs him with like multiple knives. Gordon just pulls him out, no problem, takes the guy down, knees him in the face so he's coughing up blood. And then Stone pulls out a gun, and Gordon's like, your move, man. And Stone shoots the Amonset guy in the head, who apparently is from a zealot group called the Sands, as Stone very quickly offers up to Gordon. He's like, yeah, they're going to come after all of us. They're going to wipe us all out. I'm doing whatever I can here to try to make it so it doesn't happen. And Gordon's like, all right, well, I thought, you'd given up on your men, but I certainly haven't yet. And Stone tries to pull him back, like, you can't go out there. If you do anything, they're going to come back and finish what they started. They'll come for me. Like, I was at least supposed to get out of this without being attacked. And Gordon just kicks him in the face, just being like, all right, well, you were going to sell me out too. So this is where we're at now. So we see Gordon, because he needs a little bit more help from Stone. He doesn't want Stone doing anything that's going to get Gordon in trouble here. He goes in the bat suit and basically does the intimidation boogeyman sort of thing in the middle of the night, being like, you're going to tell me everything you know about Amonset, or else you're going to learn fear. So turns out that works. He gets a fully gassed up Jeep. Gordon's allowed to go out into the desert, and he even has some coordinates of exactly where they need to go. So as he's doing that, all of a sudden a sandstorm starts rolling in, and within seconds, it is impossible to see anything. He realizes, like, I'm not in a good space. I need to call in backup. So he calls back to the Bat Blimp in Gotham, and he's like, I need you to send the rookie suit to Afghanistan, track my coordinates, send it there. And they're like, what are you doing in Afghanistan, man? You were supposed to just be out of town, not on the other side of the world. And he's like, all right, well, my Jeep is rolling, so send it quick, hurry. They try to lock on the coordinates as fast as possible. But Gordon's line goes dead. They can't hear anything, and they're like, "Oh God, prep the suit, send it over. Maybe we can still get to him in time." And the other guy's like, "What are you talking about? We're supposed to find him in the middle of the desert. How do you expect that to work?" And then they hear from the other line, "Cough, cough, because I'm Batman." Turns out when the Jeep rolled, Gordon was safe underneath it, and they're like, "Okay, well, we'll send you the suit. We'll lock onto you, but you need to give us some backstory. What's going on there, man?" And he's like, "All right, fair enough." So Gordon explains, back when he was in the military, they were sent out on some sort of, recon mission heading out. Sandstorm blasted them. It was intense. It was crazy. But when it cleared, they came across a stairway that was down into this crevice of the desert. And it looked like there were footsteps coming out of it. So they went down in there. They thought they were going to bust some warlord den or something like that. We're going to come back to be heroes. But when they stepped inside, they came across what is essentially a ritualistic sacrifice pit with a whole bunch of people being carved up inside of it. And he was like, "It was horrifying. It haunted my dreams. But now I have a way to find it and stop it for good." So that's the end game. That's where we're going to. It's dense. It's a very densely written issue, but much like the history buff statue kind of guy, I can appreciate that this feels like a Gordon Batman story and not just like let me rephrase. It feels like a Batman story, but it feels like a Batman story that is tailored for Gordon as Batman rather than pointing out how Gordon isn't Batman, how unfit he is for the role, or how weird it is that he's here. This is finally stopping with the nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Hey, isn't it crazy? Gordon's Batman. Like, no, it's just, yeah, he is. This is what he does. And we're telling a story as if that will always be the case. So we can't just harp on that anymore. I like that. I think it did a good job here. Art-wise, looks great. I think the only thing I would have a problem with is it does feel like, because it's going to be trying to wrap the story up by next issue, it feels a bit rushed. It feels like every single thing lasts for like one page. And if it didn't get done in that one page, too bad. We're not going back for it. So as much as I like it, it is a bit rapidly paced. I think I'm still going to say it's a 7.5. I like it. It's good. And I am curious to see what the end result of this is going to be. Is it going to be something that is actually like more mystical in nature? Or is it just like, nah, there's just messed up people out here in the desert. They shouldn't have done this. Green Arrow number 51, written by Benjamin Percy, art by Szymon Kudranski. So last issue we had Green Arrow and Deathstroke basically falling out of the sky as they were heading to this African country looking for a Dr. Miracle, and then Green Arrow got captured by a bunch of warlords. So we pick up with that, and it's Green Arrow, Emmy, and George the dog. They're all in the back of a pickup truck with guns trained on them. And as they're being led into this camp, we are introduced to Oga, who is the leader of this group, who calls themselves the Whites. And Arrow, like Oliver's like, the Whites? That seems a bit weird. And he's like, no. It's intentional. And Oga explains how Africa has constantly been ravaged by colonialism and all this stuff of the white man's lands. And so he went out and he studied at Princeton and Oxford and all this stuff. And he studied the tools of oppression that colonialism offers. And he's implementing them as his warlord group here in Africa. And he's saying like, yeah, and so I'm taking your name too. I'm calling us the Whites. And he's like, Green Arrow is like, I hear what you're saying, but you're also insane. And he's like, fair enough. So as he walks in, he's like, look, I'm going to sell you guys into slavery. That's just how this is going to go. But like, if you're not worth anything, I'm just going to cut off your head. But I think you're worth something because you got this weird costume thing going on. And as they're just standing there, like, waiting around, like Oga's continuing to try to intimidate, Oliver just bashes one of them in the mouth, kicks one of them. George goes and bites one of their arms, breaking it in half. And all of that, Oga gets Emmy and it holds her at gunpoint, being like, hey, you should stop. I really don't want to kill you because you're definitely not going to be worth anything dead. And the woman who had her arm bit is like, oh my God, my arm's broken. Oh, Jesus, it's mangled like crazy. And Oga's looking over at Oliver, who started to like warg out a little bit. He's got his wolf-like attributes. He's like, I think there's something special about you. And Oliver offers up the information. He's like, I'm a warg. I'd change his day to day whether or not it's a blessing or a curse. And Oga's like, oh, it's definitely a blessing. I've got a bit of the animal in me too, as we see him eating a bat on a stick. And he's like, yep, I've drank through the whole rivers and eaten the whole villages, and yet I still want more. I am constantly craving more. Colonialism. Get it? It's a metaphor. So we see that Dr. Miracle is brought inside of this place, and he's like, oh, but this guy is worth more than anything you could possibly. He's unfathomably valuable to me. And we see he slits open a cut onto Dr. Miracle's tongue. Miracle is forced to kiss the woman who had her arm broken, and then all of a sudden it just heals. It just snaps back into place, and it's not even painful. It's just like, oh my God, it's the light of heaven was inside of me. So we cut to outside where a couple of guards are drinking some beers, and one tosses up a bottle in the air, tries to shoot it, completely misses. The other guard is laughing, and he's like, oh yeah, let me see how you do it then. Tosses the bottle up. Immediately the bottle explodes. And he's like, all right, fine, you're a better shot. And he's like, I didn't pull the trigger. And then Deathstroke comes out of the jungles, and he's like, yep, that was me. So we see Oga's like, yeah, we found this doctor. He was in a trench that we were digging for the dead. He was saving some of the people there. And Dr. Miracle clarifies, I can't bring back the dead. Some of those people just weren't fully dead yet. And Oliver's like, oh, well, that's our guy. He's the one we need. And Oga's basically saying, this guy, Africa, is divided amongst all these languages and countries and all this stuff. But if I have him, if I can't be killed, if the whites cannot be killed, it's all going to be Africa under us, baby. And then all of a sudden, explosions, gunfire, crazy stuff. Oga's like, who would dare to attack us? And that's where Oliver's like, now you sound like the whites. And he's like, yeah, no, look, I have a guess as to who it is out there. If it is him, you better hope it's not him. And we see Deathstroke is going through just absolutely decimating everybody. And he's like, yeah, well, guess I should have expected to find you here, Dr. Miracle, in Africa, because everyone's always willing to fight over the cradle of life. And Oga's telling all of his guards, like, get out there, he's slaughtering us, like, stop him, blah, blah, blah. And Oliver points out that Deathstroke lived in Africa for a time, so he's probably not so happy with what you've done with the place, and he's also here for Dr. Miracle. So Oga goes out, and he's like, oh, I'll take care of him, I can handle it. And he goes out, he hops onto a minigun, starts firing like crazy at Deathstroke, who of course just effortlessly dodges all of it. He's jumping around the fire. He throws one of his swords at Oga and straight up impales him, and Oga's dead. George, now that there's only one guard left in the room, gets Oliver out of his restraints, and the guard is like, Oliver comes up and is just like, you probably should let us go now. So they start making their way out into what is now pouring down rain. I don't think they have Dr. Miracle in tow, but I also don't see him anywhere there. They run out and come to face Deathstroke. We see that Deathstroke manages to take out Emmy and George, no problem. He gets a bit more up and close with Oliver, and he's like, hey, all right, you're looking a little bit different than I remember you. You got more animal in you. Fair enough. And we see Emiko gets back up, fires a shot over at Deathstroke. He just catches it out of midair, manages to knock Oliver down on the ground, and he's like, look, you might be a wolf, but I'm still the alpha. And he takes out his katana, sword, whatever, stabs it into Oliver. And he goes and grabs Dr. Miracle. And it's just like, well, I've traveled thousands of miles and killed a lot of people to get to you, man. And he's like, please, I just don't want to be used as anyone's weapon. And we see Emiko and George come over to Oliver as the sword is still in his chest. And Emiko's like, no, Oliver, no, you're not supposed to die. What? This isn't how this is supposed to go. So I think the pretty clear and obvious answer here is Dr. Miracle does something to bring back Oliver and also cure him of his wargism. And they'll probably stop Deathstroke from taking him, if I had to guess. But, you know, that's I'm not the writer here. We'll see what happens. In terms of this issue, one of the things I've appreciated the most about Benjamin Percy's run is the playing with the social issues. It's the, like, okay, we're not going to shy away from the fact that, like, yeah, this guy's a Nazi. Like, yeah, this guy is racist. Like, we're just going to lean into that, and we're just going to, like, say these people exist and they're bad, and, like, we shouldn't have to pussyfoot around it. I appreciate what is going on here with a tribe that is calling themselves the Whites and is using tools of colonialism to like try to rule Africa. I appreciate the effort, but the fact that like it's here in this one issue and it's taken care of in like 4 pages feels very limp to me. It feels very much of like, you're limited by what you can do here. I kind of just wish you would have just done random ass warlord instead of trying to pin this extra thing on it, because it feels unwarranted. So, you know, that'll be different for different people. Maybe you got a kick out of it, but for me, it just felt a little bit like, all right, well, I guess that's more social commentary. As for how the issue's quality is, I think it's going to be a little bit on the lower side for me. It just didn't feel like a full issue to me. Again, maybe the social commentary was working, too much focus on Deathstroke, but I gotta say this is like a 6.5. It's just, I'm okay with where the direction is being taken, but I don't think that this was a full step forward. It feels more like a half step. Midnighter number 11, written by Steve Orlando, art by Aiko and Hugo Petrus. So last issue, we had this whole thing of Midnighter being in a jet that was set to self-destruct, and it seemingly exploded with him inside of it. This issue picks up inside of Apollo's apartment, where Apollo's standing looking out the balcony as Midnighter wakes up on his bed, and he's like, oh, geez, what am I doing in your apartment? Wait a minute, hold on. My wounds are healed. How long have I been out? And he's like, it's almost been a full day. You could have died, but you called me, remember? And then we get a flashback back to when he was inside the jet. He calls up something in his computer suit, whatever, of the hotline, which manages to emergency call over to Apollo, and gives him some coordinates and says, Andrew, I need you. And with only like 3 seconds to spare, Apollo jumps in, grabs Midnighter from the explosion, and flies away before anyone can notice. So we then cut to the Suicide Squad's offshore place, which is down on some highway in Florida. And we see that the new guy, Afterthought, steps in carrying the DNA from LexCorp or whatever that they stole that has the Kryptonian gene in it. And the rest of Suicide Squad is like, all right, well, I mean, this guy's whatever, sure. And Deadshot even challenges like, yeah, you know, you might be able to see the future, but like, it's still really hard to dodge a bullet. And Afterthought's like, yeah, go ahead, give it a shot. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So Waller goes back into the back room where Bendix is, the reminder that all of this is to build a creature called the Unified, which is going to be a thing. Waller's like, look, the only reason I'm helping with this is that you're part of Team 1. I was part of Team 7. We had a little bit of coming up under the same house, but like, if you lose control of this thing, I will put both of you down. And Bendix is like, don't be stupid. I am never going to lose control of this thing because I've set up all these fail safes and all these stuffs or whatever. But even if I did, there's nothing you could do. It would be far outside your ability to stop it. I am the only one who can do it. So we see he's doing whatever techno jargon, whatever, and he's putting the DNA into the sequencer. And then he's like, okay, I'll keep up my end of the bargain. Spiral is the one who attacked you. I can neutralize their door technology, or Midnighter's door technology that they can use, and allow you to teleport wherever you want on the planet. They're at your disposal. Do whatever you want. But you can use Midnighter's computer to track it. And Waller's like, okay, well, Midnighter blew up. So what are we supposed to do with that? And it's like, well, that's weird considering that I'm looking at Midnighter's operating system and it's currently pinging off of some of our tech here. So we cut back to Midnighter, who's basically just doing a long, drawn out, not confession, but just emotional vulnerability to Apollo. And he's like, I didn't like the fact that who I was a machine, and I lied to you to get you to leave. But then eventually, like, someone found out about my origins. They stole that. It was Prometheus, and he wormed his way in. He got closer to me than anyone since you, and then he betrayed me, and like, I had to do all this stuff. But long story short, at the end of all this, there wasn't anybody else I wanted to see besides you. And so they make up. They're about to share a kiss. However, he gets interrupted by Marina Lucas, Midnighter's handler with Spiral, just being like, hey, we can save all this for some other time. We've got crazy stuff going on here. We're going to need you to come in. So Midnighter comes in. He brings Apollo in with, and they're like, Apollo, why? We're just opening this up to anybody now? And it's like, Apollo is going to be needed because Bendix definitely has the Kryptonian stuff. We're going to need him to help out with all that. But before they can do anything, a door suddenly opens up under all of Spiral's like Humvees and tech and all the stuff they're going to use to roll out. And Apollo zooms through to see what's on the other side. Turns out they're trying to dump it all into a giant volcanic crater. And he's like, all right, well, that gives me 10 seconds to save you. No problem. And he grabs hold of everybody who fell through, sets them off to the side of the crater, just being like, all right, someone will come pick you up. I got to get back by. And he just takes off back in the direction of where Spiral was because the door is no longer open. We then see coming through other doors, as Midnighter and Helena are the only ones left. They're distracted as Parasite and Captain Boomerang come in. Boomerang throws a boomerang. Midnighter catches it and is just like, hey, some idiot with boomerangs is in this room with me. And he's like, shut up. So immediately Helena uses her crossbow to take out Boomerang. He's just pinned against the wall. No problems. Parasite and Midnighter continue to fight. And Parasite's like, oh, I'm going to drain all of it out of you again. It was so tasty the first time. And he's like, you may have taken my healing factor, but I'm pretty familiar with it. And I know what would slow you down even still. And he takes a giant expanding rod and just punctures Parasite's heart with it. So he's out of the fight as well. Apollo shows back up. He's like, sorry it took me so long. You guys good? And he's like, you just flew halfway around the world. You're fine. But then another door opens up and out steps Afterthought. And he's like, hey, Midnighter, you ready for round 2? And he's like, damn right. So we go back to the Team 1 safe house and we see Bendix is doing his whole monologue of like, ah, yes, the Unified. It will be a tool for us to take over the world and all the costume superheroes will not be able to fight against it, yada, yada, yada. So we cut it back over to the Midnighter versus Afterthought fight, and Afterthought is just punch after punch after punch after punch, landing all these hits. Midnighter's not doing anything to fight back, and he's like, what's wrong, man? Can't keep up? You're even worse than before. You're doing whatever. Until finally, we see that Afterthought is getting too tired to fight. It's a rope-a-dope. And Midnighter's like, hey, man, you look pretty tired. And he's like, oh, my God, my hands. I keep seeing futures where you just keep walking forward. You never stop coming at me. What is wrong with you? Why didn't you fight? I don't understand. And Afterthought's like, I landed every punch, every single possible punch. And Midnighter's like, you sure did. And I doubled up my body armor in all of those places. That's not what fighting is about. It's not just offense. You got to learn the defense too. So what do you see coming up next? And exhausted Afterthought's like, oh no. And he gets his arm broken in several places. Helena calls out and is like, Midnighter, let us study him. You can't kill him. And he's like, don't worry, I'm not going to kill him. That's all he wants. And Afterthought's like, oh, God, I can see the future. You're not going to kill me. It's worse. So turns out that the Unified has been set loose. And Helena's just like, look, you said you've beaten gods before. I hope you're telling the truth about that. And he's like, well, time to find out. So down at the Team 1 safe house, we see Unified has been set loose. He's been given his call by Bendix, like, all right, you're going to go out there, you're going to police the world. We're going to show that, like, we don't need these heroes as long as you're around. And Unified's like, sure, all right, let's do it. So he takes off, he's out to do it. Bendix opens the door for Waller, just being like, you want to see where I sent it? Let's go. And turns out it is the city of Medora, the country of Medora, one of their most populated cities. And immediately Unified's there. He's taking out terrorists, doing anything else, or freedom fighters, technically. And he's like, yeah, a bunch of Medoran terrorists attacked a Boston restaurant on American soil. This is how now they pay the price. And Waller's like, this is a public military operation. Bendix is like, how are people supposed to fear the big stick we're carrying if they don't know we're carrying it? And so as Unified's causing chaos throughout the city, we then see crashing in on a beam of light is Apollo and Midnighter. And he's like, hey, Bendix, you want to fight? And that's the end of the issue. So, yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a solid issue. It's just, next issue is the final one. Do I feel like we built up to proper stakes? I'm glad we have Apollo back. I think that that's obviously where we need to go with this. We need to have the full circle of regaining his relationship. So, like that. I don't know. I kind of wish the Suicide Squad would have disappeared. I'm glad we got the afterthought like wrapped up with. We had a way for Midnighter to beat him and show like, yeah, no, if they were both on offense, Midnighter loses. But Midnighter playing defense, that's what saves the day here. Smart. I like that. I don't feel like the rest of Suicide Squad has a part to play in all this, and I kind of wish they would have just dipped out. Like, just been like, all right, Suicide Squad, we got Bendix what he needs, and now he's gone. Because every single time I mentioned a thing where they cut over to Bendix, the Suicide Squad was there. They were in the background, they had some snarky dialogue. I just don't feel like they had a part to play in this. So, collectively, I like the issue. It's got some good points to it. I'll reserve judgment on whether or not it all works out until the last one, but for this one, 7. It's good. I just don't feel like it was really scratching an itch that some of the other issues did for me. So, yeah, it's fine. Good, even. Just not great. Batman Beyond number 11, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Bernard Chang. So last issue we had the refugees breaking into Neo Gotham, trying to take their materials and whatnot, and they succeeded, ostensibly. And then Tim was killed, quote unquote, by the newly resurrected Justice League, who thought he was an Iborg. So this issue picks up with the Neo Gotham stuff. We see Micron's trying to control crowds, saying like, guys, we will get you what you need. Just please stop looting and pillaging. And they're like, no, don't listen. He's lying. And then Barbara's trying to convince her own cops, like, hey, we need to show that we are peaceful. Do not go in with riot gear. And they're like, these people are rioting. We're definitely going to go in with riot gear. To which point, Barbara just like punches one of them in the back of the head. And seemingly the leader of the refugees is like, you blew it, Mayor Fox. You did everything you could to keep us out. Now we're in here and Gotham is ours. So we cut back over to the Justice League. They're looking over towards Mr. Cuvier, Dr. Cuvier, who's still talking with Prince Tufton, and he explains like, yeah, I put little implants on the back of their necks. It affects the way that they're able to see things. They thought that Tim Drake there, Batman, was a cyborg belonging to Brother Reis. So yeah, that's the thing. And Tufton was like, well, I fail to see why you kept them alive. If your plan was to become one of us, like, it seems like you have a totally separate alternative plan over on the side there. And he's like, no. My ultimate plan is a mixture of man and animal and power. And they're providing the power. And Tufton's like, that sounds like you're trying to take over and become the higher thing and all that. And he's like, no, look, my desire is to help humanity to survive all this stuff. I will transform the chosen into beings just like you, into survivors. So we see Max, the brother of Terry, is running through the watchtower, and he's calling out for Drake, saying like, oh, come on, you got to be here. Tell me you were smart enough to realize what I was saying. And then Tim, from seemingly nowhere, says, I never knew that this suit had cloaking tech. Why didn't I know that? And he disables the cloaking tech, and he's like, yep, turns out it was offline. It was reactivated when you rebooted the suit, and that's why I yelled C3, because that's the mental command to make it happen. And Max says, yeah, Terry used to use that a lot. He used it smart. And he's like, well, he didn't give me a user manual, so hopefully I can get out there and I can do something. And Max is like, well, we still got to beat these guys. I got a plan. Follow me. And they go to one of the remaining pods that are left unactivated, and it's Superman's pod. And they're like, oh my God, wait a minute. Hold on. He looks too young, though. How is that possible? And it's like, nope, this is him. This is Superman. Let's stop doubting me, says Max. And he's like, all right, fine. But like, what happens if he's psycho like all the other ones? He's going to absolutely murder me this time. And Max just says, don't be such a wimp. And seemingly goes to activate the whole thing. But all of a sudden there's an alarm. It sounds like an air raid siren. They go and check out some monitors. And it turns out that the monitors are trained on Gotham. And they see it's going to hell in a handbag. Things are exploding. Everything's crazy. The League is tearing down what's left of Metropolis as well. So everything's just going to chaos all at once. And they say, well, okay, because we can see what the League can see, because it's all computerized, let's see what the problem is. And they realize that the League is tricked into believing that all of the citizens are actually Brother Eye cyborgs. So Batman's like, all right, well, I got to stop them immediately. Let's go. And Matt's like, cool, I'm going to work on the Superman problem. So We see Bart is continuing to threaten normal citizens, doing whatever. Cuvier recognizes that Superman's trying to be awoken, and he's like, all right, well, welcome back, Superman. Tim goes in, starts trying to take out the Justice League. They're all like, oh, you must be craftier than your average cyborg. And he's like, no, guys, you got to listen to me. But he's not trying that hard to convince them. He's more so just trying to fight back extra hard. Warhawk tries throwing an explosive at him. Tim manages to redirect it. Aquagirl tries to launch a giant water tentacle at him. That does seem to land pretty well. And he's like, oh, of course, Aquagirl, you got hydrokinetic powers. Then we cut over to the Superman, and turns out Cuvier just woke him up prematurely before Matt could do anything. He's sicked him on Matt, and he's like, yes, finish him. And Matt's trying to convince Superman it's all just hallucination, but Prince Tufton's actually want to step in being like, okay, hold on. You having a Superman of your own to control definitely feels like you're trying to seize power. So Tufton takes away the remote control Cuvier was using, crushes it, and that seemingly deactivates Superman's inhibitor chip or whatever you want to call it. So Superman's like, oh, geez, what the heck was... Well, all right, this is definitely gonna not end well for you, as he looks over at Cuvier, and Cuvier tries to run away. Superman just literally yanks the steel panels from underneath him and takes him out. So we cut over to Tim, who is about to be decapitated by a giant Green Lantern construct sword, and he's like, oh, you are Brother Eye soldiers, you're formidable, obliteration is the only option. And at the last second, Superman jumps in the way and says, stand down, he's not your enemy, and he super speeds around to take the inhibitor chips off of everybody's back of their necks, and he's like, all right, zaps them all, they're all clear, and it's like, yeah. And they do some brief explanation here of like, why would Brother Eye keep you alive and all that stuff, and it doesn't matter. Just know that the Justice League was kept alive for reasons. But Tim specifically points out, hold on, you're younger than Superman that I knew in my time. There's no way you are the same Superman. And Superman reveals, you're right, that was my father, I'm John. And he's just like, all right, cool. And then they also piece together that this isn't Terry, he has a different voice, this has to be Tim. So everyone shake hands, they all know each other, and it's like, cool, we got to go take care of business though. And they go over to Prince Tufton, and he's basically just like, look, you and your people were transformed into animals. Do you want to be people again? And Tufton's like, I was never a person before. I've always been an animal. I'm the next step in evolution. And like John and Barda are talking just like, so there's no way for the others to like turn back. So like, Tufton, are you going to be able to take them? And he's just like, I'll take them in. Whoever wants to join, so be it. But like, I demand that we be left alone otherwise. Like, humanity is just going to turn the world into a hellhole. We'll do our own thing over there. And as all the new people leave, Justice League's just like, well, all right, well, we're gonna have to get back to Gotham because it's not doing so hot either. So we see that in the meantime, everyone's been trying to control as much as they can of Gotham City, and then all of a sudden, most of the Justice League arrives via Green Lantern platform, except for Superman, who's flying on his own, and he delivers this whole speech of like, we must stop fighting each other. We must join forces, use our skills that we have to help rebuild the world and not tear it down further. The Justice League is back, and we'll have to do our share as well. So let's all get to it, and we can shape our future in unison. And it seems to work. Everyone's basically like, oh, okay, Justice League, cool, yeah, sweet. So Micron's like, how did you survive? And once again, inhibitor chips, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, Matt is silently sitting there having a moment with Tim of just like, hey, yeah, you really came through here. You did a great job. But John is looking disappointed over the entire city, and he's just like, oh, the devastation. I can hear it all around the world and all that. It's pretty bad. And Tim asks, wait, what happened to the original Superman? He's like, my father, long story. I'm sure we won't get into it. But everyone's happy to have Superman back, and he's like, yeah, well, when the eye went down, Cuvier used us, or was going to use us anytime he needed like a big bump in power or whatever, but that's all behind us now. Now we have to get the Earth back on its feet. And they're watching from on top of a tower, but on top of an even taller tower, off in the background, is the character Rewire, who we saw like storm into a shop and like kill a guy like 4 issues ago. And turns out that he's working under the lessens the construct of somebody else saying like, oh, hey, rewire, the Justice League will be leaving soon enough, and while they're going off to fix the world, we get Gotham. And he's like, all right, whatever you say, boss. So yeah, I mean, we got plenty of Batman Beyond left. We got a whole nother trade left after this, so we'll be sure to get an entire thing following up. In terms of the storyline, I mean, I like the idea that John is Superman. I'm down with that. It gives a little bit of, we've set this up in other places in the universe. Let's have some fun with it now that John's going to be around for a little bit. And yeah, I think it works. My only thing that I think is just a little is the Cuvier stuff. It just feels so much like, oh, well, what was his plan? Why did he do the things he do? And the answer is, 'cause... Like, they barely go into it. They just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, he was going to use us. And all I can think is, the entire world nearly exploded. What do you mean, going to? I feel like he probably should have quite some time ago, but whatever. Yeah, it's still fine. It's an okay issue. Art is fantastic. That gets 12 out of 5. And as for the writing, yeah, issue as a whole, I'm going to say... I'll say 7.5. It feels 7.5 to me. I was debating with just a 7, but I do think it's better than that. So 7.5. Swamp Thing number 4, written by Len Wein, art by Kelly Jones. So last issue we had Matt, I can never remember his last name, he showed up, Matthew, whatever his name was, showed up with a wishing device and basically said to Alec, hey, I can make you not Swamp Thing. Of course he agreed, Zatanna did the thing, but it turns out that Matt is the one who ended up getting the Swamp Thing powers. And so, I think it's Matthew Cable. That sounds correct, but I could be wrong. So this issue picks up, and Alex is just like, what happened, Matt? Jesus, what happened? And Matt's like, what did you think was going to happen? The universe needs a balance. Like, someone has to be a Swamp Thing. I decided to be Swamp Thing so that you didn't have to do it anymore. And Alex turns to Zatanna like, did you know about this? And she's like, yeah, I told you there were consequences, and you said you were cool with it. And she's like, you didn't tell me what the consequences were. I would not have been cool with this. And he's like, yeah, no, but like, seriously? Don't sweat it, man. I'm happy with this. And Alex like, no, you aren't. You just got a taste of the power. You don't understand the horrors that come with it, the sacrifice. And he's like, you did it. I can do it too. It's not a big deal. And Zatanna's like, hey, look, I understand that you're upset about this, but like, this was some deep, deep, deep magic. Literally an act of God would be the only thing to be able to reverse it here. So, I suggest you just kind of get used to being human. I mean, isn't there anything that like you wanted to do that you were just dying to be human in order to do again? And he's like, no, okay, hold on. There was one thing and it's kind of stupid. And she's like, no, tell me what's up. And he's like, I missed pancakes. I really want to taste pancake again. Like all the syrup, oh God, all of it again. And he's like, yeah, Zatanna's like, yeah, sure. I'll go up and get you some pancakes. Like we can definitely do that. By the way, you're naked and it's an awful drafty old castle. I think I have some clothes that can fit you upstairs. And he's like, oh yeah, thanks. And then she takes off her own robe and passes it to him and says, in the meantime, here, wear this. And immediately he's like, Campakes? Who wants Campakes? So we cut over to Louisiana sometime later. Zatanna just teleports both of them back into the swamp. And Alex just like, oh my God, it feels so different being human. I've almost forgot like air and blood and all this other stuff. And Matthew's just like, hey, I'm truly happy for you. And he's like, well, I would have felt a lot more happier if you didn't lie to me. And he's like, would you have gone with it though? Would you really have? He's like, no, of course not. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, especially not my best friend. He's like, and that's why I didn't tell you. Like, I did what I did out of love and sacrifice. I'd do it again. Look, my Jeep's nearby. It's full of gas. Just go off, do whatever you want. Maybe, hey, you can go look for Abby. You guys can have a long life together, all that stuff. And Alex was like, are you kidding? Dude, you just got dumped into being Swamp Thing. I had to figure out all that stuff on my own. I'm going to help you through this. I'm going to tell you exactly what it takes to, like, learn how to control the green. And Matthew's just like, all right, fine. If you're not going to leave, then may as well get on with it. So they spend a few hours. He explains all the basics of it, of like building himself a new body and new limbs and transferring his consciousness and all that sort of stuff there. And as he continues on, he's adapting to his surroundings and trying to become one with the planet itself. A couple days seemingly have passed. And he's like, all right, well, I mean, Matthew, you're honest to God, you're getting pretty much all this here. Pretty much the only thing left is a parliament of trees, but I can't really teach you that. We just got to wait until they make contact. And then as he's saying that, there's a shotgun noise from out in the bayou. Immediately to go off running, see what's up. Turns out it's some poacher. These are federally protected lands. They are not supposed to do any hunting here, but this guy killed a buck on the land. And Matthew, who I will just call Swamp Thing, steps up and he's like, you illegally murdered a protected animal. And the guy's like, yeah, this here's my kill. You ain't gonna get nothing from it. Get out of here. And Swamp Thing starts approaching. The guy pulls out his gun, he fires off a shot at him. And Swamp Thing's like, you shot me? He's like, yeah, and I'll do it again. And Swamp Thing's like, do it. I dare you. I double dare you. Guy takes another shot. The gun backfires on him. Turns out the Swamp Thing plugged the barrels. And then he comes up to the guy and he's like, hey man, check this out. And he just starts ripping the guy apart like limb from limb. And he's like, why are you doing this to me? And he's like, because I can. And that's where Alex steps up and he's like, what the hell was that? Yeah, well, there were less lethal ways of doing that. And he's like, oh, sorry, Alec. I guess I just didn't know my own strength. And he's like, look, something, great power, great responsibility. It's getting late. We need to tell the police where they can find this body. People are going to notice if he goes missing. And Swamp Thing's like, people go missing in the swamp all the time. Like, it's not really that big of a deal. Why can't he just be one more? And Alec's like, what are you... This is not you. This is not like how you sound. You don't sound like yourself anymore. And Swamp Thing's like, what? I sounded human? I guess that's part of the job, because I'm not human anymore. Maybe you should leave, Alec, if it bothers you so much. And he's like, what, are you kidding me? No, now that I know that you might have some weird sociopathic tendencies, no, I'm definitely not leaving now. And Swamp Thing's like, all right, fine, fair enough. And he just starts walking, and he's like, what do you do? You're walking towards town. You can't go that way. And he's like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I've known what I've been doing since the moment this all began. And since I can't convince you to leave me alone for 2 goddamn seconds, guess you're coming along for the ride. So they walk into town. They're in Huma. This is the name of the town. And everyone's just gawking like, oh my God, it's the Swamp Thing. Like, well, I was just here in town. This is crazy. And everyone starts like boarding up their doors, trying to get inside. He's just like, look, this is your own fault, Alec. How am I supposed to miss you if you don't go away? And as they're locking the doors, Swamp Thing just laughs. He's like, as if it would protect them. Like, there's nothing they could do to stop me. And Alec once again is like, what is wrong with you? This is not like you. And he's like, you really know who I am. And Alec calls out, like, you made a sacrifice. You did this for me. And he's like, I didn't do this for you. I got kicked off the police force. Like, my entire life was ruined. I was out there looking for anything to be able to fix my life. And when I came across that stupid Hand of Fatima thing, I figured out my plan to get the power from you, incomparable power, to prove that I was right, that I am right in how I do my police work, and that I will be able to police the world. And at this point, he's completely bound up Alec. Alec can't do anything about it. But he does provide some sympathy towards Swamp Thing. He's just like, Matt, I'm so sorry. I didn't know this is how it was after that. And he's like, yeah, no, I was put on you for protective detail, and then I thought you died. Like, clearly my career was over at that point. I don't know why you think it wouldn't be. So as he's arguing all this, he's basically saying that he's going to run the planet now. He's going to make sure he becomes the top cop. This dude comes out, who I guess was previously in the military. He's like, hey, swamp monster, I got a grenade here. I've been saving it for an emergency. Eat shrapnel. And he throws it at Swamp Thing. It hits his chest. He engulfs it. It explodes. There's a giant hole in the middle of him. He's like, you idiot. Weapons can't hurt me. Nothing can hurt me. And he approaches the guy, and the guy's like, all right, I'm ready to square up, man. I'm ready to do it. And as he's doing so, Swamp Thing is like, if you were in the military, you know that attacking a superior officer is a serious offense. And he takes the tiny plant microbes inside of this guy's body and just evolves them and grows them until he is nothing but a horrific gnarled tree standing in front of Swamp Thing. And he's like, anyone else want to challenge the law? No. And everyone's backing away. And he's like, great. And so he causes some vines to spring up through the ground. He makes himself a throne of thorns. And he's like, and this is where the seat of new power will be in the world. And Alec's like, what? And all of a sudden the cops show up. Media's not far behind. As the sheriff gets out, Darcy Fox comes out, is like, freeze, hands up in the air. He just immediately pulls him up in vines, and he's like, I won't kill you out of respect to the Force, but like, I can't have you interfering either. And then Alec tries to make a thing. He's just like, look, Matt, there's still time to fix this. And he's like, what do you mean fix this? This is exactly according to plan. He's like, well, with all the TV cameras around, you need someone in authority to negotiate on your behalf. That's, you got to keep the sheriff alive for that, right? And besides, what is it that you even want? He's like, I want to take over the world. I'm going to police the world. I'm going to become the top cop. That's what it is. And Alec's like, no one's going to go for that. They're not just going to let you do that. And he's like, no, you'd be surprised. I destroy a few cities and then boom, everyone's going to be falling over each other to fall in line behind me. That's just what basic human instinct is. So at that point, he's like, I tried to get rid of you, Alec. I tried to spare you, but you just wouldn't let go. That's what this is. And Alec, for somehow, whether he frees himself or Swamp Thing just lets him go, he's like, look, I'm responsible for this mess. I'm going to fix it. And Swamp Thing's like, seriously? I only kept you around until I was sure I didn't need you, but now I'm certain I don't. And he grabs Alec and a bunch more vines and just pulls him underneath the pavement. He looks over at a nearby TV station that set up a camera crew, and he's like, all right, now, where were we? That's the issue. You know, when Matthew was introduced at the end of issue 3 with the shock of lightning saying, oh yeah, that's me, Matthew Cable. You know, I thought he may have been evil. Who'd have thought? My God, he's evil. Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because I did double check at some point between that third issue and now, and Matt Cable is the character that is in like the Sandman series. He is Matthew the Raven. So I don't know how this fits in with that. It seems very convoluted, but all this does anyway. So, I mean, not a bad issue. It's basically just the turn. I didn't expect it to be anything less. I don't know how we stretch this over 2 more issues. Next issue, I guess, could just be him establishing more of the rule, getting Alec back into a place where he can take out Matt, and then the last issue is just him taking out Matt. That makes sense to me, but we'll see. Collectively, I think this one, I'll give it a 7.5. I wouldn't call it great. It does feel very like by the numbers in a lot of ways, but it looks fantastic. It's got a lot of gothic horror elements to it, and like Matt's Swamp Thing feels so much more gaunt and horrific than Alex did. And yeah, it's writing wise, it may be a bit more formulaic, but it's still good. Like there's a reason the formula exists. So 7.5 for sure. New Suicide Squad number 19, written by Tim Seeley, art by Juan Ferreira. So last issue we had the Suicide Squad was basically thinking they were out of Waller's grasp. They thought they were home free, and then turns out they were betrayed by the cult/Church of Cain. We see that immediately they are attacked by all these members of the Fist of Cain. And it's not only the Suicide Squad, it's also those other supervillains, assassins, whatever you want to call them, who are brought into this as well. Cheetah is riding on the back of one of them called Razor, as Razor's just trying to fly her way out, no problem. And that's where the leader guy who's betrayed them, named Adam Reed, steps in, and he's like, hello, my name is Adam Reed. I have a villainous monologue here to tell you about the Fist of Cain. And he basically just explains they kill for the sake of killing. They're damn good at it. They have a point system. They will try to kill people who have higher point values. You get higher point values by being harder to kill. So the Suicide Squad are pretty up there. And he specifically is pointing out that this entire building is like super hard to destroy because it's a reinforced castle. So they shouldn't even try to escape. But if they do try to escape, the Suicide Squad still has bombs in their neck that he controls. So at that point, Cheetah jumps off of Razor's back, is like, oh wait, hold on, I can't leave, he's gonna blow my head up. To which point Razor, who's at the window, is like, Cheetah, come on, we'll figure out another way, I can come back for you, just help me get out this window. And then Razor gets shot through the neck by a bunch of the cane people, and Razor's like on the ground bleeding out, reaching out for Cheetah, saying, please help me, and Cheetah just turns the other direction, jumps away. Harley, meanwhile, is making her way through some of the catacombs. We see another Fist of Cain member comes across her, is going to try to kill her for 10 points. However, El Diablo gets the drop on him, knocks him out with a brick to the head, and she's like, hey, fantastic, awesome, let's go ahead and take him out the same way he was going to take us out. And El Diablo's like, no, give me your shoelaces, we're going to deal with him, we're going to tie him up so he's no longer a problem. And she's like, all right, you're going to get your bad guy card revoked, though. So then we go to Deadshot. He's up in the air vents. He's about to kick his way out of the whole castle. Down underneath the air vent, he hears, I don't even remember his name. Kilgore is being like stabbed and tortured. He's getting in some good swipes himself, but it ain't enough. And Deadshot's just like, all right, whatever, man, screw that guy. And he goes to kick his way out of the air vent. However, the force causes the air vent to collapse, and he lands right in the middle of them all, on top of Kilgore. And they're like, oh, hey, Deadshot, 15 points. So we cut over to Belle Reve, where Waller got a text saying the Suicide Squad was still alive and apparently some coordinates. She runs the coordinates and is just like, all right, apparently they're in some weird German castle or something like that. I'm going to have to go get them. And Ashmore, the guy who was there, is like, well, I guess I'll leave then, unless you're going to threaten to stab me again. And she's like, ho, 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 not yet, Mr. Ashmore. Or should I call you the hunky punk? And he's like, what? And she's like, oh, yeah, no, I know who you are. I knew everything about you. Nobody else knows about it, but I did. And we get the most insane breakdown that apparently his name is Dorian Ashmore. He's a normal history teacher, but then he has this costume. Then he robs banks in called the Hunky Punk. And his whole thing is that he has like stone-like skin and it's resistant to guns and knives. And he got an enemy, he's called the Victory V's, and he's like, how the hell did you know all this? He's like, your superiors in London were having difficulty with costumed villains, and they thought that someone in the inside was like a leak or something like that. So I asked for personnel files. I saw you with your long vacations and periods of travel and your resistance to being promoted, and it wasn't that hard to figure out that you were the Hunky Punk. And she's just like, yeah, that's what you called me. I was a dowsing rod for scum, right? And he immediately just like grabs her by the neck, holds her up, and she's like, hey, if anything happens to me, I have an automated email going to go out to your superiors. And also, I told everybody to shoot you on sight if you're not with me. So, yeah, I think you still have something more to learn about controlling supervillains from me, which is the whole reason you came here. So class is in session. Listen up. So we cut back over to the castle. We see that Deadshot is surrounded by all these Fist of Cain people, but he's like, all right, no one's going to get any points on me. I may be out of bullets, but I'm not out of the fight. And then immediately a couple of them get headshotted. Like, they're just automatically down. In comes Death Trap, who was mentioned before. He's also got a bunch of guns, and he starts firing at him. They end up taking cover behind a wall, and they're like, Deadshot, why aren't you shooting people? He's like, oh, I ran out of bullets. He's like, you need a gun? Perfect. And there's literally tile wall behind him, and he just psychoanalytically uses the tile to make a gun. And he's like, Deadshot's like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, yep, that's my power. I can make a gun out of anything. He's like, that's like the best power I've ever heard ever. So they throw him the kitchen tile gun and then just start shooting all these Fist of Cain people. We see, for whatever reason, Deadshot he's unfamiliar with the Fist of Cain people, so Death Trap gives him the full rundown of like, oh yes, they're a cult based on the writings of this guy and blah, 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 blah. And basically Deadshot's like, okay, fine, cool, but why are you saving me? And he's like, oh, I just didn't want anyone else getting the drop on you and getting the credit for killing you. Like, some no-name shouldn't have that honor. And he's like, great, cool, awesome, I guess. So they decide to make their way out to a sentry point where it's all holed up. They're going to be able to take shots and just constantly make more guns, so no problem there. Meanwhile, Cheetah runs in. She's being attacked. She's got a few arrows sticking out of her. And Deadshot's like, okay, hear me out. If the whole thing is based on points, and they have to split the points if there are shared kills, it would make sense for us to wait and thin out the herd of Suicide Squad members until they are forced to start killing each other so that they don't have to share the points as much, right? And Death Trap's like, absolutely, sounds good, let's let them all die. And Cheetah goes like, Deadshot. And he's just like, all right, damn, I have a conscience, sorry, I gotta go help. So we then see them run in, saving Cheetah, doing whatever they can. Adam Reed then goes deeper into this castle, somewhere into a cathedral, whatever. He kneels before this throne that's there, and he's like, oh, I'm so honored by your teachings, but I have come to ask for forgiveness. I feel regret at feeling guilt over my giving pain to the woman I loved. I killed her, and yet I still feel regret over this. I know I have failed you in this way. And we see who he's kneeling before is the skeleton of that Christian Fletcher guy, the one who wrote the crime Bible. And he is like, I will become your shepherd. I will make up and I will atone for my sins by killing Amanda Waller for you. So we see Diablo and Harley have taken up somewhere in a kitchen. Harley's like, man, I can't believe I got tricked again. It just makes me want to go full bad guy and just screw it. Let's just kill everybody again. And Diablo's like, no, you were doing good. Continue to do good. Good is good. And he's about to start welding the door shut so nobody can get in with his fire powers. We see Deadshot, Deathtrap, and Cheetah make it in just before he does. So they seal up the door. And Harley's like, hey, Deadshot, are you mad that I led us into a trap? And he's like, yes, I'm going to imagine everyone I shoot from now on is having your face. But I'm not going to kill you right now because there are like 1,000 of them out there and there's just us here. But what they don't have that we do have is an outstanding mutual hate for Amanda Waller that has turned us into a team. And the final bit we get is Captain Boomerang sleep in his cell, gets rudely awoken by Amanda, saying, hey, wake up. I'm going to let you get revenge on Deadshot by making him owe you his life. And we see Amanda's there in full gear along with the Hunky Punk. The Hunky Punk. Such a horrible name. All right, yeah, I mean, it's fine. The only thing I'll call out is that they did a little bit of connectivity where this Dorian Ashmore guy is the brother / relative of Poppy Ashmore, who's made several appearances over in Grayson. I don't know if these are pre-established characters or if we're just pulling these out of our ass, but like, I like the connectivity. It's definitely good. As for the rest of the story, it's fine. It's okay. There's really nothing wrong with it. I don't want to say it feels like a middle bit, but like, it definitely just feels like we're trying to put the Fist of Cain people over. We're definitely trying to make them seem like they're more important, and that's fine. It's what we need in this sort of book, but I feel like the next issue is absolutely going to be, and then they get their asses handed to them. So we'll see how that all shakes out, but this one, 7.5. It's good. It's not great. It's just a solid issue. Art's good. I really like the art, though. I do want to call that out. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out this April 6th, 2016. And more to come. I don't know. I've run into such a strange problem here as I approach the end of the show. Essentially, at the end of every episode, I just want to say, and there's only X number of episodes left. But I also say that at the beginning of every episode. And I say that like just all the damn time. And I know it gets old, and I don't want to be repetitive because, like, the last thing I want to do here at the end, when I'm supposed to be building up hype of like, we're here, we're going to do it, is just be like saying the same thing over and over again. I know that's not what I should be doing, but frankly, I don't know what else to say. Like, oh wow, gee willikers, guys, another week in the bucket. Next week we've got such crazy things like Red Hood, Arsenal, like, I don't know. Maybe you like me just saying the same things over again. Maybe nobody listens to these end bits. My money's on that one. But, you know, I still got to do them. It'd just be weird if the show just like, and that was my thoughts on Starfire. Credits. No, it wouldn't work. Anyway, let me tell you what's coming out next week. Next week's only got 10 comics, probably. I mean, I added on an extra one this week. God only knows what's going to happen next week. Next week we have, in roughly alphabetical order, Batman, Superman, Black Canary, Catwoman, Constantine the Hellblazer, Earth 2 Society, Gotham Academy, Green Lantern Corps, Edge of Oblivion, Harley Quinn and her gang of Harleys, #1 issue on that, Red Hood Arsenal, and Starfire. That's it. That's everything. I'm so happy we get a 4th Harley Quinn book? Harley Quinn and Power Girl, which admittedly ended, but I'm counting it. Harley's Little Black Book, and Harley Quinn and her gang of Harleys. This is the 4th pillar holding up the rest of the line. Anyway, I think that is pretty much all I got to say here at this point. So If you have anything else that you would like to add about any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit those up in the comment section down beneath this YouTube video, because I'm almost positive that's the way that you're watching it. But if you do happen to somehow be listening to the audio version, we might have a subreddit and a Patreon and a Discord. All those things may or may not be in the show notes / description of whatever it is you're watching or listening to. So you can also share your thoughts there. Just sound off into the sea of noise that is our Discord. Honestly, our Discord is pretty well ordered. I'm pretty happy with that. So if you want to hit me up anywhere, hit me up there. The other places are, pay to enter and then Reddit. So it's so weird how I turned around on that. I used to be on Reddit every day. Like, that was my default. I'm bored, go to Reddit. And then I stopped and my life has only improved. You can get help. Call the number on your screen now. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, listening. However it is you consume this podcast, be sure to tune in next week and interact with it in a positive manner. Until then, always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.